Joining us for a little bit is Mr. Daniel Erspamer from the Pelican Institute. I am, for the sake of this conversation and introduction, going to describe the Pelican Institute as a conservative think tank, because later when I have lunch with my friends, I want to tell everybody I talked to a guy from a conservative think tank this morning. Good morning, Mr. Daniel. Welcome back to KEEL. How are you today?
Good morning, y'all. I'm doing great.
Okay, you guys sent out, you've got this paper, this report, this think tanky thing talking about the possibility and proposal for tax reform in Louisiana. Let's start with the shotgun blast, kind of broad, then we can narrow it down. What's it talk about?
Sounds great. Well, as y'all know, we've had a chance to talk over the last couple of months about a variety of challenges to bringing jobs and opportunity back to Louisiana and solutions to do that, from budget reform to state and local government and on down the line. Well, this next piece is, how do we take this antiquated, broken Byzantine tax structure that we have in Louisiana and make it fairer, flatter, simpler, and best yet, pro-growth in terms of quality jobs and state GDP economic opportunity.
Mr. Daniel, is this antiquated, broken down Byzantine tax structure that we have here in Louisiana, is that the primary, is that the soul, is that the big reason that we in this state seem to be behind the curve when it comes to the economic boom that currently that America is embracing?
It's definitely a big driver of it. I mean, if we look at what the reforms have been on the federal level in the last few months, it's the same principles, right? Let's look at what are the drivers to quality jobs and economic growth. I mean, that's the thing we want to do, right? How do we make sure our kids and grandkids have the same jobs and opportunities that we did and our parents and grandparents before that, or better yet, even better? So yeah, it's a tax code that really is holding us back, while our neighboring states and really across the country are seeing just a boom in economic growth.
So let's aim for the bullseye. What's the big thing?
All right, so this is a big thing. Let me tell you, we went through, just to give you a sense of how complex this is, we went through, I think, 23 different iterations of this plan to get to where we landed. And our principles were this: we wanted something ultimately that was simpler, right? Well, we've talked about the complexity in this and what a driver of problems that is. So we want it simpler. We want it more predictable so that businesses and families can know from year to year what their tax burden is going to be. We wanted it to be not overly burdensome on low-income families. And we wanted it to make sure in our models that this would spur jobs and economic growth. So here's the bottom line. We looked at corporate and personal income tax, and the principles for both are the same. Lower the rate, flatten the structure, and ultimately remove the hundreds and sometimes thousands of different carve-outs and credits and deductions, all of which serve certainly a purpose to help one group or another, but let's make it flat and predictable for everyone.
You're talking about on individuals a flatter tax. The tax brackets would go down, and a lot of people would pay no tax. Is that accurate?
There certainly are some folks who would pay no tax. In our plan, we are more than doubling the standard deduction, similar to what was done on the federal level in tax reform. We'll eliminate the 6% bracket. As most of your listeners know, we have a 2%, a 4%, and a 6% graduated progressive tax bracket. Ultimately, we'd like to get that all down to a flat 4% tax. We'll get close to that in this plan. Again, we wanted it to be roughly revenue neutral. We're not looking for government to raise more money. We're not looking for government to raise less money in this iteration. We just want to focus, what is the right structure?
On corporations, I'm looking at your report. Repeal the franchise tax, repeal the inventory tax, reform corporate taxes. Daniel, we won't have any money left.
Isn't that funny? No, this is spurring economic growth. This actually gets us to the exact or very nearly the same tax revenues that we see today, because we do it by getting rid of, we've got right now a system where government is picking winners and losers. If you've got the best lobbyist and a good accountant and a good lawyer, you can navigate your way around. Just to give you an example of this, our top corporate tax rate right now is 8%. Well, the effective rate, what most people pay, is somewhere around 3%. And that's because there are 400 pages of tax deductions on the corporate side. So what we want to do is simplify that dramatically, and in the short term, bring the rate down to that effective rate, about 3%, and ultimately move toward a phase out of that. And let me tell you what the impact of that is. If we were to phase out the corporate income tax altogether, we're talking about within 2 years, 3,500 new jobs in Louisiana and $715 million in growth for our state's GDP, which is the measure of our state's economy.
Talking to Daniel Erspamer, the Pelican Institute, new tax reform plan. You know, we're talking in all this tax mumbo jumbo that a lot of people are going, what is he talking? I want you to tell me, Daniel, what this will do to keep me from moving my business to Texas as opposed to keeping it here in Louisiana, or moving into Louisiana rather than moving into Texas. That's who we are competing with big time.
You're exactly right. And this has huge impact for that very scenario. Think about it this way. If you're trying to move your firm somewhere and you're looking at Louisiana or Texas or Tennessee or Florida, and you look and you see that Louisiana has this 8% corporate tax rate, and there's all these, you start looking through the numbers, and, I mentioned hundreds of pages of different special tax treatment. Well, you start to look at that, and then you go look at these other states that have very, very low income taxes or no income tax altogether, or corporate tax. And you just say, forget it. I'm not navigating that complexity. I'm going to go where it's simpler and I can predict it better. And so the result is we have an economy where the only big job landings are where the government is basically bribing companies to come here, right? And I understand why economic development is important because of this structure. Wouldn't it be better if firms came here and jobs came here because we had the right climate to begin with?
And best of all, Daniel, there's a Democrat in the governor's mansion who, without a doubt, will embrace every single one of these proposals as soon as he reads, as soon as you email it to him. I guess the point I'm making, obviously, is John Bell wants a minimum wage increase. John Bell wants a 40-cent a gallon gas tax. Let's be realistic about this. What shot does any of this have?
Well, look, this is the governor should embrace this. The governor wants, like all of us want, more jobs and a better economy. So any politician out there really should embrace a plan like this. This gives their constituents exactly what they're asking for. But you're right. The challenges of navigating the political climate in Baton Rouge today are a big challenge. And so really what we want to make sure, if we've actually got some legislators who are going to be sponsoring a reform package modeled after this plan in the next legislative session. Do I think it will make its way and become law in 1 year? No, these things take time. And so just like we're talking to you and your listeners will be barnstorming the state to talk about this broad reform agenda, all of these things to how to bring jobs and opportunity back. And so what I'd encourage you and your listeners and everybody else is as candidates are coming to your door asking for your vote and telling you what they believe in, ask them where they stand on this. This is going to take a big effort across the state to make sure we're not just putting another Band-Aid on the problem, but really we're looking at the fundamental solutions that are going to turn our state around and bring quality jobs and opportunity back for everyone.